Clairs. So we're going to talk about clairs. We already mentioned clairs, and help me remember about the spirit guide at the end, because that takes a little more time. What are they and how many do you have? So kind of just jot down on a sheet of paper which ones of these you think you have. Claircognizance is clear knowing. Some of you already mentioned this. It's when you know information and you don't know how you know it. It just came into your head suddenly. For example, my first mediumship experience, my sister called me and said, someone we knew son died. I have permission to tell the story from the mother, so I'm not sharing without permission. My sister said Brandon died, and I had not seen Brandon in 25 years. He was an infant the last time I saw him, and in my head immediately I knew it was a heroin overdose or a drug overdose. And then I had a whole other experience, but a couple of days later I found out it was a drug overdose, and I had no way of knowing that. Absolutely no way of knowing that. It was just the information was in my head, and that's an example of claircognizance. And several of you mentioned that. Clairvoyance is clear seeing. That is inside your head or outside your head. Most people have clear seeing inside their head. And sometimes it's so subtle that you don't realize that you're having a clairvoyant experience. Someone mentioned earlier that they see things in black and white in their head. That's clairvoyance. Some people see full color. Some people see full scenes, like in a movie. Some people just see flashes of words or pictures. That's all clairvoyance. Some people see outside of their head fully formed images. It can be a misty figure standing in front of you. It can be images projected on a wall. Anything outside of your head is clairvoyance, and any images inside your head is clairvoyance as well. Clairaudience, clear hearing, also that can be outside or inside of your head. So there's ringing and fluttering. I get a lot of ringing and fluttering in my ears. My clairaudience, 99% of the time, is inside my head. Occasionally, I'll hear a voice outside of my head, but that's more random for me. Most of my clairaudience is inside my head, and you may experience either one of those. The ear ringing is usually such a high frequency when a spirit is talking to you or me or whoever, that if you hear a ringing in your ear and you do not have tinnitus, so make sure if you have that, you get checked for tinnitus. If you hear a ringing in your ear at a specific time, during a reading, when you're looking at a picture of your loved one who passed, when you're talking about your loved one who passed, if you pay attention to that ringing, ask them to slow it down and give you the information in a way you can understand it. This happens to me a lot in readings. A spirit will come through very fast, very powerful, very excited, and like it's starting right now just because I'm talking about it. I'll hear the ringing and I'll be like, you got to slow it down. You got to slow it down, because I can't understand that high frequency they're at. So then they'll either slow it down and the ringing will pull back, and they'll show me in a different way. So it's okay to ask spirit to show you in a different way. They will help you in any way that it's possible and ethical to help you when you are trying to convey a message. And I'm just being so disrupted by the ringing of my ear. Sorry, it's distracting me because they're like buzzing in my ear so bad. And spirit's funny that way. Like sometimes I'll be talking about flickering lights and my lights will start to flicker. So these are things, just pay attention. If you have light flickering, ear ringing, anything that seems a little like it's happening often enough to pay attention to when it's happening. Sometimes lights just flicker for no reason, and sometimes there is a reason. Sometimes your ear rings for no reason, and sometimes there is a reason. So just start paying attention to those things. Claire sentience is clear feeling. That is emotional feeling or physical feeling. And I imagine probably almost everyone here tonight has some form of emotional clairsentience, feeling the energy of others, especially as we talked about earlier, if you have anxiety when you're around other people or depression, that is very often feeling the energy of others and not understanding that you're taking on that emotional burden from someone else because you don't know to put up a boundary. Now, obviously, if you're a mother with young children, that's a different story. But if you're an adult that has people interfering in your life that don't need to be, you can put up a boundary to them, and that will help dampen that anxiety or depression you're experiencing. Um, Again, disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am not a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist. These are just things about mediumship that I am conveying to you. Clairsentience is also feeling in the body. I get this a lot when I do readings. I can feel pains in my body and pressures in different parts of my body in the way someone had an accident or an injury or a sickness during their life, and sometimes the way they passed. Like I'll feel heaviness in my chest if they've had pneumonia, or a sharp pain in the middle of my chest if they've had a heart attack. Sometimes I see the words of what happened to them while I'm feeling it, because like I said earlier, your clairs will blend together, and it's not like one distinct thing here and one distinct thing here. They'll blend together. So it's not always just this clear, precise, different clair coming through. They get mixed together. So clairsentience can be emotional feeling or physical feeling. Clairaugustance is taste. I may have had this twice in the thousands of readings I've done. Some people get clairaugustance often. Some people never ever have it, and that's okay. Clairalience, right, that's a typo. There should not be an S there. Clairalience is clear smelling. Occasionally I get this. Rarely during a reading, but sometimes I'll just like smell the perfume my mother wore, which was a very distinct smell. If anybody remembers the perfume Taboo from many years ago, you can sometimes I'll smell a cigar. Some people have a grandpa that smoked a cigar and they're bringing their energy through, and they are bringing that smell to your mind, to your senses, so oh, my grandpa smoked that cigar. I'm glad he's showing me that his presence is here with me. So those are the clairs. Does anybody have any questions about that right now?
I think I do.
Okay.
I was told, because I started out with just the hearing and the seeing was much more vivid and better than my hearing, and now it's switched. I'm hearing more than I am seeing. So I was told that my guides were kind of backing off on my vision so I could hear better, and that way my other abilities would step up. Is that
That is an accurate statement. I would agree with whoever told you that. And also, something similar happened to me when I was training. And my teacher told me that they're pulling back the clairvoyance because it takes so much energy, and they're allowing my other clairs to come in. Because the more clairs you develop, the more dynamic your readings will be. Because if you just have claircognizance, you can still do readings, but you're going to have a more dynamic reading and connection with your clients if you pull from all the different senses. Because if you're only using one clair, you may be limited in what evidence you can get from the spirit in the spirit world. So the more clairs you can develop, the better your readings will be when if you are a professional medium or you're just doing readings for friends and family. So the more, the better.
Now, will my visions, do you think my visions will come back to how good they were?
Yeah, so you just have
Okay.
to practice.
Okay.
So
Okay.
lucky for me, I had a friend who had a very large family and friend group, and she probably hooked me up with about 50 friends and family members that I could do free practice readings with, aside from the ones I was doing in my development classes. So I probably did a few hundred readings before I ever did a professional reading. So the more readings you do, you can sit in this class, you can come to 100 of my classes, you can go to somebody else's classes, you can watch a million videos. Nothing helps you develop more than doing actual readings. So that's where it's like sports or school, nothing helps you develop until you actually do whatever it is. If you're a basketball player, you're not going to get better unless you actually play basketball. If you're a medium, you're not going to get better unless you actually do readings. So practice, practice, practice. Any other questions about that? Okay. Psychic versus mediumship. What is the difference? So this should be pretty quick. And there's a few layers to this. A psychic who just purely does psychic work connects to you and your aura, you, the human person, and reads what's going on in your life now, what may have happened in the past in your life, and can possibly predict future events or recommend future events. A medium, I would say all mediums are also psychic because, well, a medium connects to a spirit in the spirit world. They aren't necessarily giving you psychic predictions. They're connecting you to a loved one in spirit to prove life goes on past this earthly realm and that we are all still connected to each other at the spirit or soul level. But all mediums are psychics because when we connect with our client or sitter, which if you were getting a reading from me, you would be called a sitter. We're connecting with you and we're connecting to your loved one in spirit. And that loved one in spirit can show us things that are happening in your life right now. For example, I do my mediumship readings on Saturdays because I work during the week. And I was doing a reading for a lady earlier, and her mother showed me her dad, who's still living, her mother's passed, showed me her dad's dirty work boots. And she said, I was just at my dad's house yesterday or the day before, and I had just cleaned his floors, and he was going through the house in his dirty, muddy work boots. And so that is an example of I'm connecting to her mother in spirit, who's showing me something psychic that's currently happening in her life now. I'm not predicting her future, but I'm using the psychic part of my mediumship to explain what's happening in her life currently through connecting with her mother in spirit. Was that confusing?
Not at all. Not for me.
Okay, thank you. And I love your shirt, Trent.
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd notice. I wouldn't change just for you.
I thought you had a wardrobe change.
I did.
So any questions about psychic versus medium? That's a pretty quick and easy one.
Is it fair to say if you say all mediums are psychics, is it also fair to say that not all psychics are mediums?
Not all psychics are mediums, because
but it's the other way around though.
Yes.
All mediums are psychics.
All mediums have psychic abilities.
Right.
Yes.
But not psychics have medium abilities.
I think psychics could all
Well,
develop their mediumship if they chose.
but right. But you
But-
know,
Yeah, some just choose just to do psychic work, which is
Gotcha.
fine.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so sharpening our skills. So how do we sharpen our skills? We have to have good boundaries. Number one, example. When I didn't become a medium till my late 40s. And July 31st is my mother's birthday. Again, she passed.
Oh, fine.
Oh,
July 31st too. Okay.
and on July 31st of the first year I was training, at midnight, my mother showed up in my mind's eye with like 1,000 people lined up in line behind her. And I'm thinking, look, lady, I'm going to bed. I shouldn't be up this late anyway. And I was like, you have to come back or allow me to give readings to their loved ones when the time is right, because midnight is not the time and I don't have any clients sitting here. So my boundary was saying, all right, I see you. I understand these people want to communicate with their loved ones, but I can't do it right now. And so, I just said, I'm grateful that you're here, but I'm going to bed. You're going to have to do this in a different way. So she, went away. And I can't say that those 1,000 spirits she had have come to me in another way. I'm not sure, because I put my boundary up and said, do it a different way. I also have to have boundaries when I'm in my regular day life, because I'm a science educator and communicator. And I have to keep that very separate from my mediumship. I have had, before I learned my boundaries, I have had spirits come to me while I'm talking to someone at work. It's always been an adult. It's never been a younger person. But I'm like talking to my boss and her grandma's floating over her shoulder saying she wants me to talk to her granddaughter. And I'm like, yeah, I'll totally get fired. Let's not do that today. I would like to keep my job. And, I just ask them, please make it possible. And I say it in my mind and I project it to the spirit. Please make it possible for your granddaughter to get a reading when the time is right. And then they just go away. They're very good at listening when you ask them to do something that's ethical and appropriate. And that at that time, being at work, that was the right thing. Boundaries, that's also goes with discipline. You can't have spirits just coming in and out whenever. You can't have any quality of life if you have spirits dropping in on you anytime. There's a famous show, The Long Island Medium, love her to death, have nothing against her. But I think the drop in readings that she does have to be, she has to get permission from those people and they have to sign paperwork before they can do those readings for, obviously for legal reasons. So just know that you shouldn't walk up to somebody like she does in the show and just start giving them a reading. And one of the main reasons for that is, let's say that person's child just passed away 3 days prior to that in a very tragic way. That person is not emotionally ready to get a reading, and it's not appropriate to force a mourning parent to get a message from their child that passed. If someone wants that message, they will ask for it, and it's not our job to force that on someone. Even though I want to help everybody heal, but I don't want to force healing on someone, because not everybody's ready for that. And you should wait at least 3 months 3 months minimum before you get a reading. So I've had people, 3 days after their loved one passed, want a reading, and I'm like, you got to wait. Now, sometimes they book a reading and I don't know when their loved one passed. That's out of my hands. But you have to have discipline.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I had a reading scheduled with a different medium, about 2 months ago. And I had a friend that was really on hospice, but at the time that I booked the reading, he was still in hospice. But anyway, he passed 3 days prior to that reading. He came through so strong, it blew my mind. He had so much to say, and so much specific validation for his widow that I could give to her, that I was just blown away that it only took 3 days and he was just coming through like he was standing right next to me.
Oh, they can come through immediately. That's not the issue. The issue isn't they can, and some people will tell you that they can't come through for 3 to 6 months. That's not true. They can come through immediately. Actually, someone with like Alzheimer's or dementia or a brain injury, they can start having communication. Their spirit can communicate with you. Say you're in a different state while they're in that neurological distress, because your soul kind of is half in and half out at that point. So it's not for the spirit, it's for the human.
Gotcha.
Period.
And I had invited him. I had said, please, please, please come through. And so that was all he needed to hear. So, yeah.
Yeah. And as long as your, was it your friend you said who's?
Right. A friend. It was my friend's husband. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As long as was, not traumatized by it and you had her permission. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, it was my reading. She wasn't with me. So it was, I didn't, I mean, I just.
I meant to relay the information.
Oh, and I did message her after. I said, I have something to tell you. I don't know if you want to hear it, but I'm going to tell you that he came through. And if you want to hear it, you can. She was all for it. So it was a good thing.
Good. Yeah. As long as you have their permission, it's fine.
But yeah, Teresa Caputo, she just walks up to anybody. It seems like.
Yeah. I think that's for TV. I'm sure I would hope, and I'm pretty sure she's ethical enough to ask their permission ahead of time. Finding your place in the spirit world. So we all have to find that place where we go, especially when you're beginning mediumship. You have to find the place where your spirit can go and greet the other spirits that you want to communicate with. You don't just want to be willy-nilly all over the place and just meeting spirits anywhere. You want to have discipline, so you can have quality of life. And so the spirits can trust that you have, a dependable routine and know where to meet you. For me, I used to have a very specific place. I have a painting of it somewhere around here where I would always, prior to my readings, I would always do my sitting in the power, which is how you connect to the spirit world and feel the energy of the spirit world. And I would go to this certain place and I would ask the spirits to meet me there. Now, once you are doing mediumship for so long, you don't really need to do that anymore. The spirits just know you're in your office, you have a client showing up on Zoom or on FaceTime, and the spirits know. So I project out, all right, I'm talking to, Jane Doe today, bring Jane Doe's loved ones through. And then they just show up. But when you're first starting, you need to find that place so you will feel safe and consistent, so the spirits can trust you're safe and consistent. I'm going to get a pause because when I talk too much, I lose my voice. You also should learn how to connect to the spirit world on purpose. So many of you have said, I get messages, I see things, I hear things. But part of learning mediumship is connecting on purpose. When it's time to connect, being able to make that connection and hold that connection. So often beginners, students, they can connect and they'll get 1 or 2 pieces of evidence and then they get distracted and they lose the connection. So you have to be able to connect and hold that connection while you're talking to the human in front of you. And so that takes practice. Some people, it's like super easy, no problem. And some people, it, takes a long time to get that connection and hold the connection. Most people don't have a problem getting the connection, but some people have a problem holding it and giving a reading simultaneously. And again, practice, practice, practice.
Good question.
Mhm.
So with mediumship, I mean, I know, spirits do what they want, but if the sitter has a wall up and you can feel that wall, at least for me anyway, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, when I can feel that wall up, it makes it harder for me to read for them. So I don't know, is that more because I feel their wall, or are they not being able to connect because of the wall? Like,
So in this scenario, you're the medium and they are the client, correct?
correct,
And the client has the wall up.
correct.
I would say if that happened to me, I'm not so worried about the reason why. I would say to the client or sitter, I would say, I think we may not be the right fit for each other, because I don't want to diagnose the client and say, girl, you got a wall up.
Yeah.
I would say, maybe we should try this another time. Maybe, are you having a stressful day? Maybe we could do this in a different way. Maybe I'm not the right fit for you. Whatever you feel instinctively is going on, that's the most appropriate thing to say, because there's nothing worse than trying to force a reading. I've done it. It's horrible. And it makes me feel sick to my stomach, because I want so badly to help people heal or start their healing journey. And there's no worse feeling than not helping someone because I forced it. So
This was somebody that I was practicing with, and they were already kind of a skeptic.
Mhm.
And then it just made me feel even worse because I could feel the wall. So it made it hard for me to connect.
And so what did you
Maybe it was my own stress, anxiety.
do? Yeah. So what did you do?
Sorry.
What did you do?
I gave them as much as I could, and I was just honest with them. I was having a hard time making the connection. I
Okay.
didn't want them to think that it was them.
Right. Right. Yeah. You don't want to pin it on them.
Right.
Just to say, maybe this just isn't the right fit. This isn't the right day. It's cloudy or rainy. I don't know. I'm kidding about that part. But
Yeah.
just, you don't want to pin the blame on them. And sometimes I get clients that are skeptics that will book with a mystery name and a mystery email. And I don't even know that till after the reading, because, I'm busy. I'm not researching who's who. And, and they always come away, wow, how did you know all that? I didn't even use my real name. And it's like, well, sometimes it's better if you don't use your real name, because it's about the energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would be very delicate and sensitive and say, not the right fit, not the right day. Maybe recommend, if say you're a professional medium and you're doing this for real, regularly, say, you might be a better fit with so-and-so. I did me and a couple of my colleagues today were talking about that earlier on a mediumship meeting. There was a client, one of them had, that was a challenging client. And I said, maybe they would fit better with this other medium that we know, because they seem to be a better, I don't know, personality fit. And so when you get to know a bunch of mediums, you can, recommend clients that may not be a good fit for you to someone else. Like, I don't like to read for friends and family. I feel like I know too much about them to give them a good, clean, pure reading. I do it, but I don't really like to do it. Some people love it.
Yeah.
And will read for friends and family. So yeah, I would just let them know it's not the right fit. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we have to learn to connect to spirit and hold that connection. And when I see mediums sometimes doing live readings and they have their eyes closed, professional mediums should have their eyes open. You should always, because you want to connect with your client. You don't want to, go out to go meet with a lawyer or somebody and they're sitting there at their desk with their eyes closed, right? We're professionals, we're trained, we take classes to do this. So you should always have your eyes open. And all of these things, in my 6-month mentorship, we go through every single one of these bullet points in class and explore all of them and practice them. So I'm doing a very fast, rushed version of my 6-month mediumship mentorship in like an hour and a half. All right, so developing your skills. This is when we connect to spirit and shift our mind and hold the blend or the connection with spirit. Some of these terms I learned from my mediumship teacher. So these first couple of lines are not my words, they're her words, but she's given me permission to use them. So you shift your mind to spirit or move your mind to spirit and then hold the blend or the connection. And that's how, but it takes practice. So let's say I'm reading for Jane Doe and she wants to talk to her mother. I have to be able to call her mother forward and get information from her while having my eyes open and talking to my client in front of me and still hold that there. And I describe it as if you're a mother or someone who takes care of somebody and you had a child at the playground, a mother always has a connection to that child, no matter how it's running around, up the slide, down the slide, through the swing, over here and over there. A mother can always feel that connection with their child. And so when I'm holding my connection with spirit and talking to my client, I can still feel that tangible feeling of having that connection with that spirit. And they're giving me evidence, and I'm talking to the client, and they're giving me evidence, and I'm talking to the client, and you have to be able to hold that connection. And it takes practice. So you have to do practice readings for that. There are different types of evidence. Not only do you have different clairs, there's different types of evidence. Excuse me, I'm losing my throat. There are strong pieces of evidence and there are weak pieces of evidence. Some people think getting a name in a reading is strong evidence. I would say the name in a reading is only strong evidence if it's a specific, unusual name and not a common name like John or Mary. I had a grandpa John, an uncle John, a grandma Mary, and a sister Mary. Those are not common names. This is especially true when people are doing platform mediumship and they're like, there's a John over here in this area of the audience. The odds of that are like super high, right? Because it's a common name. Now, if they said there's an Xavier over here, that's different. Xavier's not that common of a name. So there's strong evidence and weak evidence. And I think names are mostly weak evidence, especially if they're not unusual. Strong evidence is deep evidence that you follow into a detailed story. Like I did a reading for a woman whose aunt passed, and in her bedroom, There was a sliding glass door with a screened in porch on the second floor, and the closet was between the bed and the sliding glass door. And on the second shelf of the closet was a box with the paperwork that they had been looking for. I can't remember what, some legal paperwork everyone was looking for. And so I led her through the room, up the stairs, into the box in the closet by the sliding glass door. That is deep evidence. That is evidence that it takes practice to get to that point, and it's detailed, and there's no way I could ever know that about that person in any way, because I've never been to that person's house, except through the connection with spirit. So see the difference between a name like John in a reading and knowing where the paperwork is in the certain room on the certain floor of the house. So that is called intelligence behind the evidence, where the spirit is showing me their intelligence. They know everything. They have access to all information, and they can guide you into the place you need to go to get that evidence. Now, it doesn't happen like that in every reading, but that is an example of getting deep intelligence and strong evidence. Again, eyes open and delivering a message. I would say that one of my specialties as a medium is delivering a message. I had a message today for a client who's had several readings from me over the past couple of years, with her mother who passed. Her mother gives great evidence. And this morning, when I was getting ready, the mom said to me, "I'm pulling back my energy." And I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do the reading. She literally told me she's pulling back her energy. I'm like, what am I going to do? I know my client wants to talk to her. So I get to the reading and I say, your mom told me she's pulling back her energy. She goes, oh my God, I haven't been able to hear her lately. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, that's part of the evidence, right? That her mom said the same thing that she was experiencing. But the message was her husband and her were having marital problems because she was mourning her mother so deeply for the past 2 years. So the mother told me, you're hurting your marriage because you're so busy mourning me. Instead of focusing on your husband, you're focusing on me. I'm not here anymore. You need to focus on your husband, fix that relationship. And she said, literally last week, she was considering a divorce.
Wow.
And so that's a message. That's an important message, because now she knows, she has validation that, oh, yeah, I need to focus here and not over there. So those are the types of things that can come through in a reading. And this takes time and patience and commitment to be able to get readings, give readings with strong evidence, strong messages, and help people heal and start on their healing journey or continue their healing journey. And you have to practice. So part of the 6-month mentorship is we practice with each other, and we do readings with each other every time we meet. So we meet once a month or once every 4 weeks, and then we have a lesson, and then we practice connecting to spirit, we practice holding the connection, and we practice getting evidence, etc., etc. So you have to practice, and then you get homework where you have to do certain things, practice, sitting in the power, finding your spirit guide, things like that. So that is, all right, so here again, this is kind of the same thing I just talked about. Strong evidence medium evidence, weak evidence. This is a little snippet of one of the lessons where you write down what types of evidence you think are strong, weak, or medium, and what intelligence behind the evidence is, like the example I gave with the lady with the paperwork in her closet. And then delivering a healing message. To me, if I give, 3 pieces of specific evidence in a reading that only the sitter and the spirit would know, but I deliver a healing message from spirit, like the lady today with her marriage, to me, the message is more important often than the evidence. Because if you give them the evidence, a couple of pieces, and they understand it and they know it's specific, the message is often more important because that's what they need to hear to start healing. And the message can't be, oh, your grandma loved you and sends you bluebirds. That's not a specific message. The message has to be specific to that person, not, oh, they love you and they're flickering the lights. Those things may be true and those things may come through, but the message needs to be deep and specific to the person, just like the evidence.
Can I make a suggestion for those who think that they don't have an ability and they want to maybe learn?
Mhm.
I know what helped me, because one, I live in the Bible Belt, so it's not very easy to practice with people. You can only practice with friends and family so much. So what I was doing was looking up celebrities or famous people, and it doesn't even have to be anybody from the United States. It can be from any place, but people that I don't know anything about. And then I would, put it out there that I'm trying to connect with them and get as much information as I can. But if they would give me information that I would be able to validate by looking it up.
That's an interesting
And
way
that
to
helped me
Mhm.
because it didn't put me on the spot having somebody to read for.
Mhm.
And then it actually taught me to practice what I was hearing and what I was seeing.
It's a great idea.
That is a great idea. You know what another thing is? There's a lot of Facebook groups that you can join and practice. And there's a website, and I do not remember the name of it offhand, but you can trade readings with people for practice.
Oh,
I
okay.
will want some of my students from my last class use that and they practice there. And if I'll look that up.
Okay. Thank you.
Danny, you can practice on me anytime you want.
Oh, thank you.
And then I would say this to you, Danny. I keep this note on my desk. It says trust and allow.
Mm-hmm.
The mentor told me this, and I've had this note. It's all wrinkly now. I had to make a new one because I've had it so long. When you practice, like with the celebrities, like you said,
Mhm.
that's good practice. But I know from experience, it's hard and scary to give a reading to somebody who's a stranger, especially when you start charging money for it, because you are so afraid they're going to say no. No, that's not right. No, that's not my loved one. And there's a couple of different reasons for that, but it is terrifying. But you have to trust and allow spirit. And it takes a long time to fully trust. I used to have severe anxiety before every reading because I was so afraid I was going to be wrong and I was going to hurt my client. But now I've done it so much, my trust is just built up and up and up. So
Right.
the more you practice with strangers, the better. Strangers that you can talk back and forth to, and on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. So I would highly recommend that.
Okay.
And yeah, and part of the 6-month mentorship is practicing with each other over and over and over again. So don't tell anybody about any of your people until then. So does anybody have any questions about any, I know I gave you a 6 months worth of information in an hour, or less than that actually. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess I have some questions just from past experiences, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So I was doing a reading for somebody practicing, and I took the female that was coming through as their mother, but she was standing at a distance, and I was kind of getting the impression that either she didn't believe in that kind of thing when she was alive, or that there was some kind of resistance, like maybe she didn't get along with her son when she was alive, or maybe she was afraid of how he was going to feel with her coming forward. I wasn't quite sure. And he wasn't really giving me much information on why, because I did tell him, that she's here, but she was at a distance and I don't know why. Have you ever had that experience, or do you know
So
why that would be?
there's many, many reasons, and yes. So when that happens, I ask them to, excuse me, I ask them to come forward, come closer,
Okay.
closer. And why are you here? What is holding you back? So you ask them questions. When you ask them questions, they'll answer you. And I had an experience similar to that. And the man wasn't saying anything. The spirit was a male.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't talking. And I'm like, he came closer to me, to the client. I said, he came closer, but he's not talking. Like, he's literally not talking. And I'm asking, and I'm like panicking, like, oh my God, he's not saying anything. And the lady said he was mute.
I just said mute in my mind. Oh my God.
Oh,
He was mute. And so that was evidence, right? Because I've never personally met a mute person in my life.
Yeah.
So the fact that that happened, it's unusual, it's rare. So that was evidence. And then he started giving me evidence in other ways, but he was doing that on purpose. So I would say he wasn't talking.
Which is where that trust comes in at.
Exactly. So make yourself a little note.
Yeah.
Trust and allow. Ashley, you had a question?
Yeah. So, okay. So I have been seeing, like, it started with 444, and then it went to 555, and then 333 and 222. Why is the reason why that like, why does that happen? Like, keep happening?
Some people call those angel numbers. I am not, I'm not well versed in what all of those mean. I think they can have several meanings. I do appreciate numbers. Numbers hold a very special place in my heart. I believe in numerology. I couldn't teach it because I don't know enough about it. But I would look up angel numbers.
Okay.
If, when you see those numbers, a certain loved one comes to mind when you see them, that may be their sign to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions about the very fast and vast amount of information? No questions right now. Excuse me.
Thank you for this, though. Appreciate it.
You are very welcome. So if you are interested in continuing this journey and having 3-hour classes instead of 1-hour classes, once every 4 weeks for 6 months, and then we'll have a Voxer chat where we can ask each other questions anytime, except when I'm sleeping. I have the 6-month beginner's mentorship. I have one-on-one classes. I have a couple of clients in my one-on-ones right now, intermediate and advanced, and then specialty mediumship clinics that I kind of go back and forth putting them on my website depending on demand for that. You can book any of those on my website, or you can email me with questions if you want more details about any of these things. I'd be happy to share any information with you about that. So does anybody have any questions about any of that? No? Okay.
What happens if you miss a class? Like if you can't make the day, like God forbid there's an emergency or something?
That is common. That happens often in my classes. I record them and I'll share the recording, and then I can have a makeup class with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's not unusual for that to happen
Okay.
because we have busy lives, right? We're all
Yeah.
running crazy, doing all kinds of different things, especially with the holidays coming up. So yeah, that's not a problem at all. So any other questions about that? Okay. So if anyone wants to stay and